The first step in constructing these foam core floats for the E-Flight T-28 is to install the upper carbon rods. In order to install the upper carbon rods, I've drilled a hole to accept the rear landing gear supports, as you can see on my completed model. Once you've drilled that hole, you can then install the carbon rod in the floats. I'm only going to do one for the video. Get it lined up with the hole for the rear support. And then the technique I've developed is basically to take some 3M Fast Cure 5200. You can use regular Cure 5200 as well, doesn't matter. And basically apply the glue in the upper crack that's left over that you see. And then what I do is I work the carbon rod around to get the glue to go down inside. Make sure you get plenty of glue in there to hold that carbon rod. Okay, I'm working on installing the upper carbon rod, and as you can see, I've got the 5200 in there, and I am just smoothing it out with a piece of cardboard. You can use some sort of a spatula or a piece of plastic, it's fine. You want to get this as smooth as possible because this is going to be your finished float. We're not putting any covering on these are going to be bare styrofoam. So smooth it out as best you can, and make sure that the hole for the rear landing gear that goes through that rod is lined up to accept the gear. Okay, I've got both upper carbon rods glued in. I made sure that the hole for my rear landing gear support is accessible, and I made the top smooth. Okay, now that the top stringer is dry, you can go ahead and cut it even with the rear of the float on both floats, as I've already done. Then you're going to take the third stringer and cut it into two 15-inch pieces for the spreader bars. You want to keep the floats on the cradle when you're gluing the spreader bars in. I'm just going to trial fit everything right now. When you're gluing this together, you want to keep the front of the floats. I normally push them up against the wall to keep them straight. You want to keep the front of the float straight. And okay, this is the final step to glue the spreader bars in to the floats. Now, a couple things you want to remember is make sure when you glue this all together that the floats are in their cradles, number one. You want to make sure they're even at the front. You want to make sure you put your shrink tubing on the front support to hold the front wire gear. And you want to make sure you have a center line dimension of 14 inches. So once all that looks good, you can go ahead and glue it together.